died, says he. I never died, says he. In Salt Lake City, Joe says, I was standing by my bed. They framed you on a murder charge, says Joe, but I ain't dead. Says Joe, but I ain't dead. The copper bosses killed you, Joe. They shot you, Joe, says I. Takes more than guns to kill a man, says Joe, I didn't die. Says Joe, I didn't die. And standing there as big as life and smiling with his eyes, says Joe, what they could never kill went on to organize, went on to organize. From San Diego up to Maine, in every mine and mill, where workers strike and organize, it's there you'll find Joe Hill. It's there you find Joe Hill. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you or me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he.
To be striking poverty in New York State. We are joined with the New York State Poor People's Campaign team and our new friends, as we have just recently come off a van tour, and we're super excited that they have come to share a little bit of our history and are present with us, right? Aurelis, you were able to be a part of that incredible experience.
Sure. Nuestro tema de hoy, no más pobreza en el estado de Nueva York. Lo que vamos a estar haciendo es un reporte de nuestro van tour que acabamos de tener, nuestra caravana de una escuela libre, donde fuimos al North Country y de ahí bajamos, visitamos otras comunidades y hoy vamos a conocer todo lo que hicimos. So, tenemos amigos y amigas, hermanos ahora, que conocimos en este viaje y se lo vamos a presentar más adelante.
Thank you, thank you. And we are super excited as a part of our program and as a part of our van tour. We were welcomed by the Akwesasne to come and spend some time with them and learn a little bit about their struggles and their realities. And one of their representatives has been kind enough to join us this evening. And we certainly do not want to task her with the responsibility of reminding us whose land we are on, but she has a really beautiful way of referencing that. And I would love her to come on and help us a little bit with the land recognition this evening.
Siempre reconocemos que estamos en territorios robados, es lo primero que hacemos. Y hoy, como tenemos la visita de nuestros amigos de Akwesasne, Janelle, ella nos va a bendecir la tierra, decir qué representa para ellos estas tierras en las que nosotros habitamos ahora. Janelle.
Beautiful, yes. I just wanted to greet everyone this evening and to call you into a land consciousness. And just really wanted to gather your minds. So in our language, we say that when we gather our minds and we focus on one thing, we become one mind. And so I just really wanted to gather your minds and just bring your thoughts toward our Mother Earth and our medicines and our fish and our waters and our tree life and the birds. And if you could just gather your mind and go to that very pristine natural place and send a whole bunch of gratitude from your heart, from your mind, I would really appreciate that. That's deeply rooted in the way in which we've learned to move in the world. And so, yeah. And then also, wherever you go, it's good to, do your research and to inform yourself of where you are and who might have been there beforehand. And it's really great to have opportunities, and that initiatives like these have been pushed to the forefront of gatherings and meeting spaces. So I just wanted to thank you all for giving us the opportunity and giving me the opportunity to help bring you back there and acknowledge the land and our appreciation that she continues to sustain our lives, because the world doesn't need us, but we need the world. So
much.
Maravilloso. Es algo bello tener una concientización de la tierra. Así es que, hermanos, les invito a que nos unamos con la mente, como hacemos nosotros en nuestra tradición, para ser una mente. Unamos ahí nuestros pensamientos, las siembras, la tierra, los peces, los pájaros, y vayamos a ese espacio sagrado de la naturaleza y agradezcamos por esa belleza. Y siempre que estemos ahí, investiguemos y averigüemos quién estuvo ahí, quién se reunía, quién amaba esa tierra, quién la cuidaba. Yo agradezco a la tierra por sostenernos. La tierra no nos necesita, somos nosotros los que necesitamos a la tierra.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we are going to go just a little bit out of order for our normal processing, just because this fits so perfectly. Right, Arelis? Arelis is going to sing for us.
Yes. Yes, a song que nos acompañó, that accompanied us during this van tour. Una canción que nos acompañó durante el viaje fue esta de que no venimos solos, traemos toda nuestra gente en nuestros huesos. The song that said that we have not come here alone, we carry our people in our bones. So let's keep connected with the land and with our people, with our ancestors. We have not come here alone. We carry our people in our bones. We have not come here alone. If you listen, you can hear there in my soul. If you listen, you can hear in my soul. We have not come here alone. We carry our people in our bones. We have not come here alone. If you listen, you can hear there in my soul. If you listen, you can hear there in our soul.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. So next, we would like to turn over to our mission statement. And since tonight we have the combined services of Freedom Church and La Iglesia, if we could we start with the mission statement of the Freedom Church? And I would be happy to present that one. The Freedom Church of the Poor began meeting in March of 2020, just as the COVID-19 pandemic was breaking out in the US. The Freedom Church comes together in these times out of necessity to help end a system that is killing us. We are a loose network of workers, poor folks, pastors, organizers, thinkers, and fighters. We are bound together by our conviction that the world does not have to be this way and that this is not as good as it gets because God created abundance for all, not just for a few. We are interfaith, interspiritual, and non-religious and come from every region of the country. We welcome all who wish to be a part of the movement and all victims of empire.
La Iglesia de la Liberación de la Gente Empobrecida comenzó a reunirse en marzo del 2020, justo cuando la pandemia del COVID-19 estaba empezando en los Estados Unidos. La Iglesia de la Liberación de la Gente Empobrecida existe por la necesidad de erradicar este sistema que nos está matando. Somos una red suelta de trabajadores, gente pobre, pastores, organizadores, pensadores y luchadores. Nos une nuestra convicción de que el mundo no tiene por qué ser así y que esto no es tan bueno como parece, porque Dios creó la abundancia para todos, no solo para unos pocos. Somos interreligiosos, interespirituales y no religiosos y venimos de todas las regiones del país. Damos la bienvenida a todos los que desean ser parte del movimiento y todas las víctimas del imperio.
And then do we have the La Iglesia? Or did we want to? Okay, that's cool. Next, we would like to bring up the season statement. If Anna could join us and help to relay that, please.
Claro que sí, vamos a leer la temporada en la que estamos ahora. The story of Jesus' death and resurrection is the story of the state execution of an insurrectionist, which ends in the triumph of God over the powers of death and destruction. The story of resurrection recalls the history of the Israelite people in the Exodus and other passages of liberation and salvation. In the season of Days of Liberation, we celebrate the many examples when the liberation of the oppressed has triumphed over forces of evil. This time celebrates the many ways that the poor today and throughout history have been victorious, over the forces of oppression and death.
I need that in front of me. Can you please put it back so I can translate? Días de liberación. La historia de la muerte de Jesús y la resurrección es una historia del estado de ejecución de un insurreccionista que termina en el triunfo de Dios sobre los poderes de la muerte y la destrucción. Esta historia de resurrección invita a esta historia de los israelitas y su gente en el Éxodo y otros pasajes de liberación y salvación. En la temporada de los días de liberación, celebramos los muchos ejemplos cuando la liberación de los oprimidos ha triunfado sobre las fuerzas del demonio. Este tiempo celebra las muchas maneras que los empobrecidos ahora y a través de la historia han salido victoriosos sobre las fuerzas de la opresión y de la muerte.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I think next we are going into our Holy Scriptures for this evening. We have a few different ones. Arelis, my friend, I do not see volunteers on the list for reading this, so I think we are jumping in. Does that sound good?
Yes, Julie is here.
Oh, Julie is here. Hello, Julie.
Here. And Julie was I was in her band. Her band was the the Freedom Band. And I think that before reading, Julie she's gonna introduce herself and gonna say something about her experience in the band tour. Julie nos va a leer, antes de leer, nos va a decir un poquito sobre ella. Bienvenida, Julie.
Thank you. My name is Julie Ferrara. I use she, her pronouns, and we like to do a short visual description for people who may have visual impairments. And I am an older white woman with bushy gray hair. I have a dog, Paco, sitting behind me, who you may see every once in a while. And I am wearing a Poor People's Campaign New York t-shirt, and I have behind me the Fair Pay for Home Care, and let me move the other way, and then the Yes We Can with Rosie the Riveter as a home care worker. I worked on that campaign very hard, and as we all know, Governor Hochul catered to the billionaires, so, and forgot the 97% of the rest of the New Yorkers. So I'm gonna, all I can say is our van, it was the Freedom Van with Arelis and Cecilia and Anna, and West was our navigator and got us lost a lot, but they were adventures. We always, when I had the kids, I would always say, when we got lost, I'd say, we're on an adventure. So I would turn towards the back bench and I would say to Arelis and crew, we're on an adventure. But it was amazing. So I'll read a little bit of what I wrote before trying to collect my thoughts, because it's really difficult for me to fully explain the experience. So I was honored to be able to participate in last weekend's Poor People's Campaign Freedom Van Tour. I got to know our PPC leaders on a much deeper level and met amazing people in the North Country. Our hosts in Potsdam welcomed us in the best way possible by cooking us tasty food. And I do want to show my love and appreciation for them as well, because I am gluten-free now fairly recently, and they accommodated everybody's dietary needs, and everything was just delicious. And reminded me of how healing just sharing a meal with people is, and the communion that comes together with opening your doors to other people and then welcoming them with food. We met members of the Akwesasne Nation, and they created a safe, sacred place for reckoning, revealing, and healing. It was a transformative experience that I still, like I said, have difficulty expressing. And learning the historical significance of abolitionists like Harriet Tubman. And I do want a personal note on Harriet Tubman is I, as a child, and I feel like I must have been like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9. I don't remember when we could learn about our history. And when I learned about Harriet Tubman, I remember hearing about her sleeping sickness, and that she had been hit in the head with a brick, I believe, and that it was probably epilepsy. And somehow I connected with her on that. She was a very, very strong, disabled woman. I mean, beyond strong. She was I'm just going to say, as a New Yorker, she was a kick-ass through and through. Learning about John Brown through his own words on his land, it showed us how we must continue to fight for justice, as it is our duty as human beings.
Are you with us, Julie?
Arelis?
Yes. Please tell me when I have to translate.
Get a little frozen.
Can I do it now a little bit?
Yes, go right ahead. Thank you, Sharika.
Soy Julie Ferrara. Quiero demostrarles que he hecho una imagen para ayudar a todas las personas que tienen deshabilidades. Y también quiero que sepan que está un perrito mío conmigo. y eso me encanta. He trabajado mucho en la campaña en la que estamos porque me motiva el hecho de que el gobernador está con los millonarios y nos ha abandonado totalmente. En este caravana que hicimos, Wes nos llevó por todos lados y cuando nos perdíamos yo sentía que estábamos en una aventura. Les decía a todos, estamos en una aventura. Pero recibí el cuidado de toda la gente, compartimos la comida, nos sentimos bienvenidos. Es una experiencia bella, transformativa y sanadora cuando la gente te da y te cuida tu dieta, porque últimamente tengo que evitar el gluten. Y a través de todo este viaje y aventura he conocido de Harriet Tubman. Ella es una luchadora como cualquiera persona, mujer de Nueva York. Y escuché todo ese relato de que una vez fue golpeada con un ladrillo y le dio una especie de epilepsia. Y yo me sentí muy unida a ella. También conocer lo de James Brown y toda su experiencia y la lucha me hace ser que yo también sea una luchadora como él.
How much, when I came back, I saw it was all black, but how much did you miss? I did post it in the chat and I apologize. I should have done that earlier for the interpreter.
If you want to pick up at learning the historical significance of John Brown, I think
Sure.
that's the fella.
So I just learning about the history in New York. I'm not a native New Yorker, so it was wonderful to learn about the historical significance of the abolitionist movement in New York State specifically. And John Brown, through his own words, showed us how we must continue to fight for justice as it is our duty as human beings. We are living on this earth and in this universe. It is our duty to make this world a better place. Forward together. Muchas gracias.
Aprendiendo de la historia, el significado del abolicionista John Brown a través de sus propias palabras y cómo él enseñó que tenemos que continuar luchando por la justicia, porque este es nuestro trabajo como seres humanos que vivimos en la tierra y en este universo. Siempre para adelante, ni un paso atrás.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, so much. Julie, I'm looking at my list and it looks like we were planning on having you also do some readings for us. Are you prepared for that, or would you rather have Aurelis and I jump in for that?
I'm fine with that. I don't have so Isaiah, and I don't know Isaiah 10:1-5.
Perfect.
Woe to those who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees, to deprive the poor of their rights and withhold justice from the oppressed of my people, making widows their prey and robbing the fatherless. What will you do on the day of reckoning when disaster comes from afar? To whom will you run for help? Where will you leave your riches?
Isaías,
Yeah.
Isaías 10:1-5. Ay de los que emiten decretos inocuos y publican edictos opresivos. Privan de sus derechos a los pobres y no les hacen justicia a los oprimidos de mi pueblo. Hacen de las viudas su presa y saquean a los huérfanos. ¿Qué van a hacer cuando deban rendir cuentas? Cuando llegue desde lejos la tormenta, ¿a quién acudirán en busca de ayuda? ¿En dónde dejarán sus riquezas?
Nothing will remain but to cringe among the captives or fall among the slain. Yet for all this, his anger is not turned away. His hand is still upraised. God's judgment on Assyria. Woe to the Assyrian, the rod of my anger, in whose hand is the club of my wrath.
No les quedará más remedio que humillarse entre los cautivos o morir entre los masacrados. A pesar de todo esto, la ira de Dios no se ha aplacado. Su mano aún sigue extendida. Juicio de Dios sobre Asiria. Ay de Asiria, vara de mi ira, el garrote de mi enojo está en su mano.
Do you want me to continue?
If you are ready
No,
to continue,
no, it's
my
okay.
I can
It's
I
just
can do
reading.
it.
It was
beautiful.
just the descriptive reading.
Yep. If you're ready.
And let me close. It's okay. John Brown, his last speech. This court acknowledges, as I suppose, the validity of the law of God. I see a book kissed here, which I suppose to be the Bible, or at least the New Testament, that teaches me that all things whatsoever I would that men should do to me, I should do even so to them. It teaches me further to remember them that are in bonds as bound with them. I endeavored to act up to that instruction. I say I am too young to understand that God is any respecter of persons. I believe that to have interfered as I have done, as I have always freely admitted I have done, in behalf of his despised poor, was not wrong, but right.
Palabras, las
Thank
últimas.
you. No, ya tenemos ya lo vimos en español, so we don't have to read it again.
I was okay.
Oh, the translation.
No, continue.
Now, if it is deemed necessary that I should forfeit my life for the furtherance of the ends of justice and mingle my blood further with the blood of my children and with the bloods of millions in this slave country, whose rights are disregarded by wicked, cruel, and unjust enactments, I submit, so let it be done.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. That was really powerful. Do we want to head into the testimonies at this point, my friends?
Yes, we're gonna hear from Reverend Wes McNeil.
I tell you what, let's lay it out for folks so that they know what's coming, because this is
Yes.
going to be awesome. First, we're going to hear from our friend West, one of our retired tri-chairs from New York State, talking about this Freedom School Band Tour. Then we're going to have John Tenbush that's going to join us and talk a little bit about what's happening in the North Country and some of the stuff we talked about. Ramitha is here as well to talk to us a little bit about the time that we spent with the Akwesasne, as well as, of course, Janelle here to talk to us about that. And then Kelly will come on to talk a little bit about John Brown and the history of New York and how that fits into today and how we ended up in Albany, of all places.
Yeah. So, yes, we're gonna hear, and then since we know that it's like 4 people, right? After 2 of them, we're gonna do a song. After Wes and John. And primero, Wes nos va a hablar sobre por qué nosotros hacemos el Band Tour, cuál es la significación de esto para nosotros. Y John es de the North Countries y él nos va a poner en contexto esa región que es muy desconocida para muchos de nosotros. Wes.
Good evening. It's so wonderful to be with you all tonight. And I've been asked to share just a little bit about the context of this van tour that we are just coming off of, which is one of 3 that we've organized as the New York State Poor People's Campaign. Charita, do you want to go
sí.
back and forth? Okay.
Gracias. Soy Wes y estoy feliz de estar con ustedes y de haber hecho el trabajo que hicimos. Esta es solo una de las 3 aventuras que hemos tenido y que hemos hecho con la campaña de la gente en Pobreza.
In 2019, we held 2 van tours in the spring and the fall of that year. The first traveling through the western part of New York, and the second in the eastern part of New York from the Shinnecock Nation on Long Island to Albany. And these trips were very significant to the development of our organizing in New York State, which at that time was in the first year following the launch of the Poor People's Campaign in 2018.
En el 2021 tuvimos 3 aventuras. Hemos estado en el este y en el oeste de Nueva York, hemos ido a Albany, y lo más importante es que hemos empezado a desarrollar la organización de la comunidad.
We weren't able to do in-person van tours during the pandemic, and so this year was the first opportunity we felt we could do another tour like this, and so we were excited to do it, knowing how valuable it had been in the past. So first, what are these van tours? They've involved a couple dozen people who are leaders or emerging leaders in the New York Poor People's Campaign, spending 3 to 4 days together and visiting different communities and organizations in our state.
No pudimos hacer las aventuras que queríamos debido a la pandemia. No podíamos hacerlo en persona, así es que fue una maravilla poderlo hacerlo ahora, porque en el pasado había sido tan maravilloso hacerlo. Y lo hicimos con líderes o líderes futuros. Pasamos juntos 3 o 4 días juntos.
So I want to share just a couple of the significant things about these tours that have helped our organizing. And one is that they've helped to build unity and connection across the different regions of our state. As in many states in New York, there's a division culturally, politically, between especially New York City and that area and upstate New York. And there are also divisions between the different kinds of communities, urban, rural, suburban areas in our state. Those divisions have been exploited by those in power to keep us separate and to keep progress from happening in our state. And these tours have brought people from different parts of the state together, has helped us to understand our communities better. It has helped us to break down the stereotypes we have about different kinds of communities, to know that poverty isn't just an urban issue. It isn't just a rural issue. It isn't just a suburban issue. And as we've gotten to learn about the things that make our communities different from each other, we also see the things that we have in common and the common struggles and opponents that we're up against.
Quiero compartir que los aspectos más significativos, la primera de ellas es que nos sirvió a unirnos y a conectarnos en el Estado, porque en el Estado hay separaciones y división, el área rural, el área urbana, aquellos más explotados, aquellos que explotan, y que el hecho es que todos han luchado para mantenernos separados. Esta acción que hemos tomado nos ha unido, nos ha hecho conocer nuestra comunidad y nos ha hecho entender que la pobreza no es un asunto rural, urbano, sino que las luchas son comunes y que todos estamos unidos en ellas.
In our reading today, the prophet proclaims this message of doom to the rulers who are exploiting and oppressing the poor. And I was really struck by verse 3 that says, "What will you do on the day of punishment? To whom will you flee for help? And where will you leave your wrath?" And it reminds me that the great wealth that the ruling class has can sometimes obscure their isolation. These relationships that are based on money and commodification are not very strong and won't hold in times of real crisis. But what we are building and cultivating and trying to develop is what is a source of real strength, which is solidarity and connection and love and understanding for each other across lines of geographic difference, of religious difference, of racial difference. And that is a strength that we have and must continue to build and lean on. Because when times of struggle and crisis come, what we are building is a network that we can lean on when we need help, that we can lean on and go to in times of struggle. And that's the strength that our class can have and has to continue to build, as we know that hard times are coming, while we continue to build toward a new community and world.
En la escritura vemos que se habla de cómo se ha explotado a la gente. Y entonces se hace esa pregunta. ¿A quién vas a pedir ayuda? ¿Quién responderá a tu pedido? La riqueza les ha ayudado a ellos a mantener la separación, pero no les ayudará al final. Lo que cultivamos nosotros, en cambio, es la verdadera unión, sin divisiones. Y esa es nuestra fuerza. Y en los problemas, nuestra fuerza, nuestra red de conexiones será la que nos mantiene unida y que nos ayuda a enfrentar los tiempos difíciles que se avecinan.
Thank you so much, Wes. That was amazing. Yeah, so powerful, and definitely when we put it in the context of the scripture that we're looking at, that's really amazing. Thank you so much for that. Next, we would like to turn it over to John Tenbush of the North Country. Hello, John. Welcome to Freedom Church.
Good evening, all. My name's John Tenbush. I live in Waddington, which is the very top of the state along the St. Lawrence River in St. Lawrence County. My partner tonight, Ramitha Pillay, is also here. She lives in Colton, which is south of Potsdam, about 10 miles south of where the Freedom Van Tour stayed last week. We both volunteer as part of the leadership team for the New York State Poor People's Campaign, North Country region. Sharita, if you'd like to. All right. St. Lawrence County is the biggest county in the state, containing over 2,800 square miles. That's 5% of the land area of the entire state. In 2018, the population in St. Lawrence County was a little more than 108,000 people, which is 0.5% of the population of the state. So we're a very large community, or very large area, and a very small population. St. Lawrence County has 5 population centers, including Ogdensburg, the only city in the county, Messina and Gouverneur, which are industrial towns, and Potsdam and Canton, which each have one private and one state SUNY school. These 5 communities make up about 36% of the total population of the county. So about 2/3 of the county are thinly spread across 32 towns, 10 villages, and 1 city. The North Country, as it's typically defined, includes St. Lawrence County and also Jefferson, Lewis, Franklin, Clinton, and Essex counties. As a whole, the North Country has 2% of the population of the whole state and makes up 20% of the land area. Again, the entire area has very few people and a lot of room. The North Country has its sparse population, and it presents unique organizing challenges. After all, it takes 3 hours to get from Watertown on the west end of the North Country in Jefferson County to Plattsburgh in Clinton County on the east side of the North Country. Outside villages and hamlets, neighbors, yes.
I can start. Thank you very much. So not to make it too long. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mi nombre es Juan Tenbush. Yo vivo en Waddington, un pequeño pueblo ubicado en el río San Lawrence, en el extremo norte del condado de San Lawrence. Ramita Pillay vive en Colton, al sur de Potsdam. Ambos vivimos en el condado de St. Lawrence. Ambos somos voluntarios como parte del equipo de liderazgo para la campaña de la gente pobre del estado de Nueva York en la región del condado del norte. El condado de St. Lawrence es el condado más grande del estado, con más de 2.800 millas cuadradas. Constituye más del 5% de la superficie terrestre en todo el estado. En el 2018, la población del condado de San Lore era de 108,047 personas, lo que representa el 0.5 de la población del estado. El condado de San Lawrence tiene 5 centros de población, incluido Oldsburg, la única ciudad en el condado de St. Lawrence, Massena y Gouverneur. Son ciudades industriales y postan encanto, cada una con una universidad SUNY privada y otra estatal. Estas 5 comunidades conforman el 36% de la población total del condado. En otros lugares, la gente está escasamente repartida en 32 pueblos, 10 aldeas y una ciudad. El condado del norte, como se define normalmente, incluye el condado de St. Lawrence y también los condados de Jefferson, Lewis, Franklin, Clinton y Essex. En su conjunto, North County tiene el 2% de la población de todo el estado, mientras que al mismo tiempo representa más del 20% de la superficie terrestre del estado. La tierra del norte, como le decimos, es enorme en su población y su población es escasa, lo que presenta desafíos de organización únicos. Después de todo, se tarda más de 3 horas en viajar desde Watertown, en el condado de Jefferson, hasta Plattsburgh, en el condado de Clinton, y fuera de los pueblos y aldeas, los vecinos suelen estar a kilómetros de distancia. Los sistemas contra los que estamos luchando en la campaña de la gente pobre existen todos en el país del norte, lo que nos obliga a organizarnos a pesar de los desafíos.
Thank you. The systems that we're fighting in the Poor People's Campaign all exist in the North Country, which compels us to organize in spite of challenges. Regarding systemic racism, St. Lawrence County is not racially diverse. 94% of the residents are white, 3% are Black, 1.5% are Asians, 1% are American Indians, and then there are others. Many persons of color live in Potsdam or Canton, which are home to the universities. Other people of color live in the county's 2 prisons, and that's significant. In my office, I work for county government. We're oftentimes asked what sort of programming we do for elderly Hispanic males. And we report to the funders that we don't have elderly Hispanic males. Well, yeah, we do. They're in the prisons. So they show up in the census, and and we're asked if we can provide services for them. Anyways, for many residents of St. Lawrence County, the sight of a person of color is out of the ordinary. Go ahead.
Gracias. Quiero hablarles del racismo sistemático. El condado de St. Lawrence no es racialmente diverso. El 94% de los residentes son blancos, el 3% son negros, el 1.5% son asiáticos y 1% son nativos americanos. Muchas personas de color viven en Potsdam o Canton, a cada uno de los cuales alberga 2 universidades. Otra gente de color vive en las 2 prisiones del condado. Ahí es donde están ellos, no se les ve en otros lados. Para muchos residentes del condado de St. Lawrence, ver a una persona de color es algo fuera de lo común. Durante el proceso de reforma policial que inició en el 2021 el gobernador Cuomo, nuestro comité de Carolina del Norte investigó un poco y descubrió que la gente de color constituye el 7% de la población del condado, pero representa el 15% de todos los arrestos, el 21% de todos los arrestos por delitos graves y el 25% de todos los condenados a prisión.
Thank you. During the police reform process that was started in 2021 by Governor Cuomo, our North Country Committee did some research and discovered that people of color, while they make up 7% of the county's population, they account for 15% of all arrests. 21% of all felony arrests, and 25% of all those sentenced to prison. It has been reported that law enforcement treats people of color differently in the North Country. As an example, in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, testimonies by Black men who live in the county indicated that when they're stopped by police, they're often forced out of their cars and made to lie face down in the dirt or mud or snow.
Se ha informado que las fuerzas del orden tratan a las personas de color de manera diferente, como por ejemplo, a raíz del asesinato de George Floyd, los testimonios de hombres negros que viven en el condado indicaron que cuando la policía los detiene, a menudo los obliga a salir de su automóvil y los obliga a acostarse boca abajo en el suelo, en la suciedad, en el lodo o en la nieve.
Thank you. Systemic poverty. Poverty data show that St. Lawrence County has a poverty rate of over 19%. Almost 1 in 5 people in my county are below the poverty line. This ranks as the 6th poorest county in the state. Countywide, more than 45% of people in St. Lawrence County have incomes low enough to qualify for HUD-funded programs that benefit lower moderate income persons. In 12 communities, over half the population is considered lower moderate income. Go ahead.
Gracias. Esto es lo que les puedo decir de la pobreza sistémica. Los datos de pobreza muestran que el condado de St. Lawrence tiene una tasa de pobreza de más del 19%. Esto le ubica como el 6º condado más pobre del estado. En todo el condado, más del 45% de las personas en el condado de St. Lawrence tienen ingresos lo suficientemente bajos como para calificar para programas financiados por el Departamento de la Vivienda que benefician a personas de ingresos bajos o moderados. En 12 comunidades, más de la mitad de la población se considera bajo la pobreza.
Thank you. Population in the county can also, poverty in the county can also be seen in its housing. 1/3 of all housing units in the county have been determined to be substandard. In some communities, such as Messina, as much as 60% of the housing has been determined to be substandard. More than half of all housing units are more than 60 years old. These are typically contaminated with lead and asbestos. Over 11% of all housing units in the county are mobile homes. That compares to less than 2% across the state. Go ahead.
La pobreza en el condado también se puede ver en la vivienda. Se ha determinado que el 33% de todas las unidades de vivienda en el condado se encuentran en condiciones deficientes. En algunas comunidades como Macena, se ha determinado que hasta el 60% de las unidades de viviendas son deficientes. Más de la mitad de todas las unidades de vivienda tienen más de 60 años. Normalmente están contaminadas con plomo y asbesto. Más del 11% de todas las unidades de vivienda en el condado son casas móviles.
Thank you. The history of the county's economic development helps to explain its current poverty. In Messina, for example, an early hydro dam that was built in about 1900 attracted Alcoa, a well-known aluminum company, to come and locate there to smelt aluminum. During World War II, the Alcoa facility all by itself employed thousands of workers. After the war, General Motors came to town. They used the refined aluminum to produce engine blocks. Later on, Reynolds Aluminum opened its own smelter. Today, all these heavy industries, which had provided thousands of good-paying blue-collar jobs, are gone. In the southern part of the county, the Benson open pit iron mine and its related iron refining factory operated for more than 100 years. They closed in 1976. A major paper mill in nearby Newton Falls also operated for decades. It downsized several times before it closed in the early 2000s. To summarize, the county has benefited from, but then lost, thousands of good-paying jobs.
La historia del desarrollo económico del condado ayuda a explicar su pobreza actual. En Macena, una de las primeras presas hidroeléctricas construidas en 1903 atrajo la compañía Alcoa para fundir aluminio. Durante la Segunda Guerra Mundial, las instalaciones de Alcoa emplearon a miles de trabajadores. Después de la guerra, General Motors vino a la ciudad. Utilizaron el aluminio refinado para producir bloques de motor. Más tarde, Reynolds Aluminio abrió su propia fundición. Hoy, estas industrias pesadas que habían proporcionado miles de trabajos de cuello azul bien pagados se han ido. En la parte del sur del condado, la mina de hierro a cielo abierto Benson y su fábrica de refinación de hierro relacionada operaron durante 100 años. Cerró en 1976. Una importante fábrica de papel en las serranías de Newton Falls también funcionó durante décadas. Redujo su tamaño varias veces antes de cerrar a principios de la década del 2000. Para resumir, el condado se ha beneficiado mucho de estas corporaciones y luego ha perdido miles de buenos empleos.
Thank you. Regarding the militarization of the economy, St. Lawrence County is adjacent to Fort Drum, which is located in Jefferson County, just west of Gouverneur. Fort Drum has over 20,000 active duty soldiers. These soldiers have another 10,000 dependents. The fort is reported to have an annual economic impact in the region of well over $1 billion. The region is policed by local police departments and also by county-level sheriff's deputies, also New York State Police, also immigration, also the Border Patrol. Since much of the North Country is within 100 miles of the international border with Canada, the Border Patrol is authorized to set up roadblocks on local roads and stop and question everyone who drives by.
La militarización de la economía. El condado de St. Lawrence se encuentra junto a Fort Drum, ubicado en el condado de Jefferson, junto al oeste de Gouverneur. El Fort Drum tiene más de 20,000 soldados en servicio activo. Estos soldados tienen otros 10,000 dependientes. Se informa que el fuerte tiene un impacto económico anual para la región de más de $1,000 millones. La región está vigilada por los departamentos de policía locales, los diputados del alguacil a nivel del condado, también la policía del estado de Nueva York, también inmigración y también patrulla fronteriza. Dado que gran parte del condado norte se encuentra dentro de las 100 millas de la frontera internacional con Canadá, la patrulla fronteriza está autorizada a establecer bloqueos en las carreteras locales y detener e interrogar a todos los que pasan.
Thank you. Regarding environmental degradation, the industrial plants in Messina have emitted poisons into the soil, the air, and the water for over 100 years. Even now, more than a decade after the plants have all closed, the Mohawk Reservation that is immediately downstream from these plants has a higher incidence of cancer than other areas. New York State DEC has issued warnings that all women of childbearing age and all children under 16 should not eat any fish taken from the St. Lawrence River. As it happens, fishing is a traditional subsistence activity for the Mohawks. The former General Motors site is now an EPA-designated Superfund environmental remediation site. The Grass River near Alcoa has been designated an area of concern by DEC. Environmental remediation has been going on there for almost 20 years. Go ahead.
La devastación ambiental. Las plantas industriales de Macena emitieron venenos en el suelo, el aire y el agua durante 100 años. Incluso ahora, más de una década después de que todas las plantas cerraron, la reserva de Mohawk, que se encuentra inmediatamente, la reservación indígena de Mohawk, que se encuentra inmediatamente río abajo de esas plantas, tiene una mayor incidencia de cáncer que otras áreas. La agencia que cuida el ambiente del estado de Nueva York ha emitido advertencia de que todas las mujeres en edad fértil y todos los niños menores de 16 años no deben comer ningún pescado extraído del río San Lawrence. Da la casualidad de que la pesca es una actividad tradicional de los indígenas Mohawks. El antiguo sitio de la General Motors ahora es un sitio de remediación ambiental con financiamiento súper designado por la Agencia del Cuidado Ambiental. El río Grace, cerca de Alcoa, ha sido designado área de preocupación por esta misma agencia. La remediación ambiental ha estado en curso durante casi 20 años.
Thank you. A similar situation can be found at Benson Mines in the southern part of the county. They have been undergoing remediation for more than 10 years. So much oil had been spilled on the Benson mine site during a century of iron smelting that today a pump continuously pulls oil out of the ground. Finally, across the North Country, in the late 1800s, private investors had purchased large tracts of land and clear-cut all the trees. The Adirondack Park was established in 1892, in large part, to allow the forest preserve to recover.
Se puede encontrar una situación similar en la mina e instalación de refinación de Benson, de las minas Benson en la parte sur del condado. Ha estado en remediación durante más de 10 años. Se había derramado tanto petróleo en el sitio durante un siglo de operaciones de fundición de hierro que hoy en día una bomba extrae petróleo continuamente del suelo. Finalmente, en todo el norte, el condado del norte a fines del siglo XIX, los inversionistas privados compraron grandes extensiones de tierra y cortaron los árboles. El parque Adirondack se estableció en 1892 en gran parte para permitir que la reserva forestal se recuperara.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much for that, John. I really appreciate that in-depth look at what's happening in the North Country. Well, and all across the country, right? Like there are so many parts of your story that I can find similarities to here in my own area as well. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Now, folks, I understand that with our New York State Van Tour, this is an action-packed program with a whole lot of amazing folks that are here to testify. So we are going to run late tonight, and it's all good because we are in the spirit, and that's a good thing. However, we also love theomusicology because the music helps us to move together and be together in this space. So we're going to do this kind of a different way. We're going to ask Jamel to come in and do an interlude for us, and we're going to ask Adam to bring up some of the pictures that our folks have taken from this incredible van tour to help us to be in their spirit while Jamel helps us to sing. Does that sound good, folks?
Bueno, vamos ahora a tomar como un pequeño, queremos traer la música que sabemos que es tan importante en nuestro movimiento. Sabemos que tenemos mucho material para hoy y de hecho dijimos que íbamos a estar hasta las 7:15, pero quizás estemos más tarde. Así que acompáñenos y estén con nosotros. Vamos a guardar en el corazón todo esto que nos han dicho, que fue fuerte, ¿no? Esta realidad. Y que yo sé que podemos ver que también esas cosas pasan en nuestras comunidades. Ese paralelo, por eso es que hacemos estos tours. Vamos, Jamel.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. My name is Jamel Coy Hudson. I'm one of the tri-chairs for the New York State PPC. I recently participated in last week's Freedom School Van Tour and would like to share a song we sang during our journey. May this body be a bridge for the healing of this land. May the rivers flow through us, cleansing greed from our hands. We are born from the water, We are made from the land. Teach us, oh great mother, to bring peace to this land. May this body be a bridge for the healing of this land. May the rivers flow through us, cleansing greed from our hands. We are born from the water. We are made from the land. Teach us, oh great mother, to bring peace to the land. Oh, North Country say, oh, auspicious say, oh, poor people say, oh, oh. May this body be a bridge for the healing of this land. May the rivers flow through us, cleansing greed from our hands.
Oh, I feel so blessed by that. Thank you so much, Jamal. That was beautiful. All right, folks, we have a couple more testifiers here in the room to help us understand a little bit more about what the New York State team experienced, what they were transformed by this last week. I would like to invite my wonderful friend Ramitha from the North Country. Welcome to Freedom Church, my friend.
Hello. I'm not sure if I should turn my camera on because I don't have very good internet service, and so I'm just afraid that if I turn it on,
It's all good. I'd love to
I
see your
might
face,
be
but not
lost.
at the risk of losing your words.
Okay, so for me, this van tour, it was very, very spiritual. It grounded me in the movement, and it energized me even more than I ever thought possible. So we started on Friday. People arrived in Potsdam, and and this was significant, as was said earlier. The upstate downstate divide, which is an intentional divide. So coming up here, bringing people up here to the North Country, was really helped us bridge that divide. We got to talk to each other. We got to learn about each other. People asked us questions about life here in the North Country. And a lot of what John talked about was the conversation that we had on that Friday. Then on Saturday, we went to Akwesasne and spent the day with our indigenous neighbors. For me, this was very significant. I was born in South Africa, and it was a grounding which was very moving for me. I came from indigenous people in India who were taken from our land and brought to South Africa to work on sugarcane plantations. So we in South Africa worked as hard as I see the Mohawk Nation working in Akwesasne, fighting against colonization and trying to maintain our connection with the earth and all that inhabit it, respecting all that are in the universe. And we grew up with this idea that we are guests here and not owners of the land. So for me, that conversation in Akwesasne was very important. It connected me in some way to my ancestors. So I'll stop there for a minute for translation.
Muy bien. Los antepasados, ok. Esto fue muy espiritual para mí. Me llenó de energía y la verdad es que nunca pensé que tendría esos resultados. El hecho de traer gente al norte nos ha ayudado a quitar esa separación que nos dividía. Tuvimos conversaciones profundas, especialmente conversando con los nativos. Como yo nací en África del Sur y mi gente también fue traída a esta tierra, yo veo que me uno mucho a ellos porque hemos trabajado tanto y hemos respetado la tierra. Así es que esa conversación fue increíblemente importante para mí porque me conectó con mis antepasados.
Then we had a wonderful public mass meeting when we came back from Akwesasne. We had a wonderful public mass meeting in Potsdam. The people from the church said that it's been a while since there was such energy and singing in the space. So they were delighted that we were there. On Sunday, we visited the John Brown farm. John Brown was an abolitionist helping enslaved African people to gain freedom and also the right to vote. And so it was interesting to hear his story. And then from there, we went to Troy, New York, and had a Harriet Tubman tour, which was indoors because of the rain. But we learned about her efforts, Harriet Tubman's efforts to free an enslaved person, which was quite an entertaining story. And then on Monday, we delivered a petition to the governor and other elected officials in Albany.
Tuvimos una reunión pública muy interesante. Había mucha energía en ese espacio porque la gente decía que no han tenido esa oportunidad antes. Visitamos luego la finca de John Brown, que fue un abolicionista y que ayudó a mucha gente con sus luchas. También escuchamos mucho de Harriet Tubman y cómo ayudó a que la gente se escape de su yugo.
So this path, starting in the North Country, bridging the divide, going to Akwesasne, to the land of indigenous people, and watching them in that space, and then the John Brown farm, and then ending up in Albany. All this showed me the movement path that has been taken and that we are taking now in the Poor People's Campaign. So we started with the connection to the land and its people, and we ended with stories and struggles of freedom. And finally, to present demands to our elected officials. So another peril that I saw was in the space that we started and ended in. So in Akwesasne, we met in a yurt, which is a circular space. We had an amazing rug on the floor connecting the earth and the attributes we should embody, like love, compassion, kindness. There's other things that I've missed. But it was all positive words. The pictures were stories connecting us to the beginnings of the universe. And on the ceiling were pictures of the creation of the earth and the people, and we were told stories about how these pictures connected. they depicted how when people were in times of trouble, um, how they overcame these troubles, and so all of this, helping us to be better versions of ourselves, helping us take care of ourselves and the land and all its inhabitants. Everything in this space was nurturing and inclusive to all.
Todo empezó entonces con romper esa separación y terminamos en Albany. Esto me enseñó el sendero que está tomando nuestra campaña de la gente pobre. Nos movilizamos para ver a la gente, escuchamos y luego terminamos dando todas nuestras ideas a los oficiales que ya están electos. Estuvimos en un círculo con una alfombra preciosa que tenía todas las palabras positivas, la historia del pueblo y de la creación mismo, y en el tumbado todo el cosmos y lo conectado que estaban todas las cosas y cómo las historias de la gente, cuando hubo problemas, enseñaban que superaron con una lucha positiva y pudieron seguir adelante. Todo esto fue una expresión profunda de paz y armonía y de una lucha hacia el bien.
On the other hand, in Albany, we met in the class war room just outside the governor's office. This class war room was also a circular space. And in the center was a rug. I think it was the emblem, some New York State official type of emblem. And on the ceiling, there were depictions of war and one person or group of people showing power over others. And the scenes were all bloody and showing destruction. And to me, this contrast was so striking. This is where this land that we're on, it was in the hands of nurturing indigenous people. And now it is in the hands of power, false power, and war and destruction. And that contrast was just so evident to me. And it was striking and it was sad. And from the pit of my stomach, I had a compelling motivation and a renewed urgency to the movement. And it just brought everything to, like, clearly to me of this path that we are on in this movement. And it gave me a renewed vigor to say forward together, not one step back.
Y también cuando fuimos a la oficina de los gobernadores, había también un cuarto circular en el que había una alfombra, pero aquí, al contrario, habían fotos de luchas, de destrucción. Para mí este contraste fue completamente significativo. Por un lado, la tierra estaba en manos del amor y del respeto de los indígenas y ahora está en manos de quien la destruye. Fue triste. Mi estómago lo sintió y muy dentro de mí pude comprender lo que hacemos en nuestro sendero en la campaña de la gente pobre. Y comprendí que nuestra campaña está buscando una reconciliación. Que me renovó, perdón.
Y les renovó ese
Thank you.
sentido de adelante juntos Ni un paso atrás. Thank you, Ramita. Thank you. And Ramita was such a good host. She won above and beyond for us. Thank you for your care and love during our trip over there. Well, now, Becca, we're gonna Kelly Smith now is gonna tell us what next. What next, right? ¿Qué ahora? Y Kelly junto con Wes, there was a committee who put together the people state of the state. Un comité que puso ese reporte tan importante del estado de la pobreza en Nueva York. Y recogimos firmas. And we collect signature. We hope that you sign the petition, more than 2,000, and our van tour end with the delivery of the petition. So Kelly's gonna tell us a little bit what happened there, but most important, what next, Kelly, for us, and why we thought that was important to prepare a state of the state. ¿Por qué era importante para nosotros hacer un reporte del estado de la pobreza en Nueva York?
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. I was actually asked to speak about John Brown and Harriet Tubman and then leading up to the last day. So Charito, bear with me. I'm going to cut large swaths of what I prepared. This is the way we do it in this movement. And we will maybe come up with what's next together because I actually did not prepare that. So I just want to center myself for a second in this experience of the van tour. And I want to read something since I had prepared things on John Brown. Here before God, in the presence of these witnesses, I consecrate my life to the destruction of slavery. John Brown said these words right after the murder of Elijah Lovejoy, a clergyman who published an anti-slavery newspaper. He raised his right hand as he said it, as if he was truly taking an oath. John Brown felt called to the work of ending slavery. And I share that because many of us in this movement have felt called to this work of movement building and of striving to defeat the interlocking injustices.
Me voy a centrar en esta experiencia primero de manera profunda para ubicarme bien y voy a leer algo de James Brown y dice así: aquí ante Dios en presencia de Dios consagro mi vida a la destrucción de la esclavitud. Estas fueron las palabras de John Brown después del asesinato de Elijah Lovejoy, un clérigo que publicaba un periódico anti-esclavista. Él levantó la mano ceremoniosamente, su mano derecha, como si fuera un juramento cuando dijo esto. John Brown se sintió llamado a la obra de acabar con la esclavitud. Muchos de nosotros en este movimiento nos hemos sentido llamados a este trabajo de construcción, de movimiento de la gente, de esforzarnos por derrotar las injusticias entrelazadas.
It is in learning about these various strategies. So we heard from Ramita. I'm not going to read you what I wrote, but we heard from Ramita about the efforts to, John Brown was called to Adirondacks because of efforts to sort of circumvent this unjust law that prohibited freed Black people, freed folks from voting. And so he worked with Garrett Smith to create something to circumvent that unjust law. And it is learning about these various strategies to both end slavery and provide voting rights to formerly enslaved people that provides lessons that we can apply to our own organizing decisions and strategy.
Bueno, hemos escuchado en las palabras de Romita que John Brown le llevaron a los Adirondacks porque había una ley injusta sobre el voto. Quitaba el voto a las personas que habían sido ya liberadas. Entonces, lo que él está haciendo es aprendiendo las estrategias y nos está enseñando cuáles son esas estrategias.
And from there, we did travel to Troy, and as been previously described, we learned about Harriet Tubman's efforts to free or rescue the escaped slave Charles Nally twice in a matter of a few short hours. We learned of the conditions and treachery surrounding Nally's arrest and Tubman's ability to quickly mobilize and organize crowds of people. And we also learned about the conditions that existed in the years just prior to this event and the years following. And I say all this because this builds on how we learn to do the organizing and the mobilizing and the deep efforts we are doing in the state of New York and across the country.
Lo que voy a decir se relaciona a las estrategias que estamos aprendiendo como campaña. ¿Qué es lo que ellos hacían? ¿Qué es lo que escuchamos que ellos hacían? Por ejemplo, sin saberlo yo y creo que muchos de nosotros, Harriet Tubman visitaba Troy con frecuencia. En nuestro tiempo de estudio allí nos enteramos del papel de Tubman en el rescate del esclavo fugitivo Charles Nally 2 veces en unas pocas horas. Nos enteramos de las condiciones y la traición que rodearon el arresto de Nally y la capacidad de Tubman para movilizar y organizar rápidamente multitudes de personas. También aprendimos sobre las condiciones que existían en los años previos a este evento y los años siguientes. Ellos aprendieron, nos enseñan estrategias.
The study of history along the way of the van tour brings us to Monday, brings us to May Day, International Workers' Day in Albany. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about what we had been doing as a way of perhaps showing where we're going. In the fall of 2022, the New York State Poor People's Campaign launched as Poor People's State of the State, knowing that our elected officials never tell the truth about the true state of our state. We knew we must be the ones to tell the truth. We created a petition to demand Governor Hochul acknowledge the true state of poverty in New York and to meet with us and to hear from impacted leaders. We also began researching and compiling information and data about poverty, racism, militarism, and ecological devastation to release in a multi-page report. On January 9th, the eve of Governor Hochul's State of the State, we released our report. On Martin Luther King Day weekend, we held 3 mass meetings around the state, and we continued to canvass, to talk to people, and to gather signatures for our petition.
Esto nos lleva al lunes 1 de mayo, que es el Día Internacional de los Trabajadores en Albany. En el otoño del 2022, la campaña de la gente pobre del estado de Nueva York lanzó su estado del estado para la gente pobre, sabiendo que nuestros funcionarios electos nunca dicen la verdad sobre el verdadero estado de nuestro estado. Sabíamos que debemos ser nosotros quienes digamos la verdad. Creamos una petición para exigir que el gobernador Hochul reconozca el verdadero estado de pobreza en Nueva York y se reúna con nosotros y escuche a los líderes afectados. También comenzamos a investigar y recopilar información y datos sobre pobreza, racismo, militarismo y devastación ecológica para publicar en un informe de varias páginas. Recopilamos la historia de las personas afectadas en todo el estado para incluirlas en nuestro informe. El 9 de enero, la víspera del estado del gobernador Hochul, publicamos nuestro informe. El fin de semana del día de Martin Luther King, llevamos a cabo 3 reuniones masivas en todo el estado. Continuamos haciendo campaña, hablando con la gente y reuniendo firmas para nuestra petición.
And I tell you this because all of those efforts that I just described culminated in the events of this past Monday, the last day of our van tour. Folks traveled to Albany from around the state to join the van tour participants. We took to the streets of Albany, we marched to the Capitol, we chanted and sang, we entered the Capitol, going to the war room, which Ramita so beautifully described previously, and that is right, ironically, right outside the governor's office. And I will say that we have reclaimed and renamed that space the class war room, because we know we are in a class war. Again, we sang, we chanted, we heard from individuals testifying. I won't go into all of that again, but the governor refused to meet with us. And we then went to what's known as the $1 million staircase. You totally can't make this stuff up. And we continue to make our voices heard. And we presented our copies of this report to representatives of the majority leader of the Senate and the Assembly Speaker.
Les cuento esto porque estos esfuerzos culminaron en los hechos del pasado lunes. La gente viajó a Albany desde todo el estado para unirse a los participantes de la gira en camioneta. Salimos a las calles de Albany marchando hacia el Capitolio, coreando y cantando. Entramos en la capital dirigiéndonos al War Room, en el cuarto de guerra, un espacio representado con imágenes que glorifican las guerras y los conflictos que han impactado a Nueva York, que se encuentra justo fuera de la oficina del gobernador. Hemos reclamado y renombrado el espacio como cuarto de guerra de clases. Nuevamente cantamos, coreamos y escuchamos a personas que testifican sobre la crisis de vivienda y atención médica que ellos enfrentan. El gobernador se negó a reunirse con nosotros, lo que no nos sorprende, pero entregamos nuestra petición y firmas a un representante del gobernador. Luego fuimos a lo que se conoce como la escalera del $1,000,000. Esto no se puede inventar. Y continuamos haciendo oír nuestras voces. Luego presentamos copias de nuestro informe a los representantes del líder de la mayoría del Senado y el presidente de la Asamblea.
And so perhaps this does draw us, perhaps this does bring us to go, to figure out, to lead us to where we go next. It is this interweaving of history and current day that allows us to better see and understand the connections between our efforts today and those of the organizers, the freedom fighters, the abolitionists, the revolutionaries of the past. While on paper, these van tour stops may have seemed disconnected or unrelated or just interesting places to visit, but these themes of liberation, the systems of oppression that sought to eradicate indigenous people, keep Black people enslaved, these are the same systems that marginalize and even make invisible poor people and indigenous people today. It is imperative that we continue to study the past as well as the current conditions that oppress. We have rededicated ourselves as a result of this van tour to amplifying the histories of indigenous people and in our enslaved Black brothers and sisters. The histories that have been kept from many of us for so long, and that officials are working so hard in 2023 to suppress. We vow to go beyond land recognitions, simple land recognitions, to actually fighting the ongoing marginalization and mistreatment of our Indigenous family. We are committed to be bold in our efforts, like John Brown, like Harriet Tubman. And we understand that all over the state, there is so much more we have in common than what separates us. And so, though I didn't think I had what we do going forward, I think these are the lessons we learn from and we take going forward. We have to apply what we are learning in our ongoing efforts, whether it be in the Capitol or in our communities. And I just want to add, this is not what I prepared to say, but I just want to add that it was the experiences of this past weekend. It was the readings I've done about the abolitionist movement that were echoing in my mind and in my head and in my heart as I marched with our brothers and sisters for the Jordan Neely murder in New York City and to raise consciousness. And it resonated with me that the things that they were fighting for, we are still fighting for today. Our New York State, so I'll close with this. Our New York State van tour allowed us to both witness and experience the struggles of the past and of the present, so that we can move forward together, stronger, more grounded, more united, and more prepared for the work we need to do. Thank you.
Oh, one step back. Thank you.
Do we want to let Charito interpret that last piece?
Ujú. Lo que trato de decir es que todo lo que hemos aprendido son lecciones que tenemos que incluirlas. En este entrelazamiento de la historia y la actualidad, lo que nos permite ver y comprender mejor las conexiones entre nuestro esfuerzo de hoy y los de los organizadores, los luchadores por la libertad, los abolicionistas y los revolucionarios del pasado. Mientras que en el papel, estas paradas de la gira de camioneta pueden parecer desconectadas, no relacionadas, pero los temas de liberación, los sistemas de opresión que buscaban erradicar a los pueblos indígenas, mantener a los negros esclavizados, son los mismos sistemas que marginan e incluso inmovilizan a los pobres y a los pueblos indígenas hoy. Es imperativo que continuemos estudiando el pasado, así como las condiciones actuales que oprimen. Nos hemos vuelto a dedicar a ampliar la historia de los pueblos indígenas y los hermanos y hermanas negras esclavizados, las historias que nos han ocultado y que los funcionarios están tratando tan duro en el 2023 de suprimir. Nos comprometemos a ir más allá de los reconocimientos de las tierras para luchar contra la marginación y el maltrato continuo de los pueblos indígenas. Estamos comprometidos a ser audaces en nuestro esfuerzo como John Brown y Harriet Tubman, y entendemos que en todo el estado hay mucho en común que lo que nos separa, y sabemos que tenemos que aplicar lo que aprendemos a nuestro esfuerzo continuo en la capital y en nuestras comunidades. Nuestro recorrido en camioneta por el estado de Nueva York nos permitió presenciar y experimentar las luchas del pasado y del presente para que podamos avanzar juntos, más fuertes, más arriesgados, más unidos y más preparados para el trabajo que debemos hacer. Fue la experiencia de esta semana pasada lo que los abolicionistas hicieron y todo lo que nos ha levantado la conciencia. Nuestro viaje nos ayudó a conectar con esas experiencias del pasado y a gritar unidos que seguiremos adelante, más unidos, más preparados y que no daremos un paso hacia atrás. Gracias.
So powerful, so powerful. Understanding our history so that we can stand strong today and fight for our future. That's right. Absolutely. So proud to be part of this New York team. Thank you all so much for everybody that came in. And I will say that generally, when we have these combined spaces, we have the opportunity to enjoy communion. Tonight, we were in communion through action, I think, with our whole team. Typically, we also would participate in prayers of the people, but I think we prayed with our feet today. I would strongly encourage anyone who has any prayer requests to please drop them in the chat, and we will still gather those, and we will pray for you as a community over the week. Please make sure that you participate in that. I'm going to stop for a minute and let you interpret that part before we go any further.
Yes.
Aquí nosotros hacemos una comunión, pero ya hemos estado en comunión. Aquí nosotros, pues, hacemos otras acciones más profundas, pero ahora vamos a caminar con nuestros pies y hacer esas acciones. Este es el momento en que vamos a tratar de concluir toda esta experiencia y todo lo que hemos dicho este tiempo.
So, yes, and we were planning to have this beautiful communion with Janelle, but in the spirit of communion, Janelle is gonna say some final word, especially in relation of what we live together in that other room, in that loving room, medicine room, when you wrap us in your medicine. Janelle.
Yes, gwe gana hawis yung gets wagate uni akwazasnin de gidlo. My indigenous name is Guyana Hawis, which means she's carrying many roads. And I belong to the Wolf Clan family. I grew up here in Akwesasne, which is Ganyankahaga territory, people of the Flint. Akwesasne is land where the partridge drums. And so just, continuously making reference to the land and the people and things of that nature. I really wanted to acknowledge the Poor People's Campaign tribe because you are a beautiful embodiment of humanness and of passion and love, and your inclusiveness, your turning pain to power, transforming the narrative. It's really nice to be in circles that are quality over quantity. And you can be in a room full of thousands of people and not feel connected to not one of them. And we can come into the You're at Mama Bears and all of your graciousness and your open-mindedness and your willingness to hear something different, I think says a lot. And I wanted to possibly bring you to this woman right here. So over the weekend, we had a lot of prestigious women come to Mama Bears. And one of them was actually, her name is Katya Miller. And Katya has studied Lady Freedom for like 40 years of her life, her whole entire life. And this is Lady Freedom right here. She is actually on the top of the Capitol building. And Lady Freedom is actually an indigenous woman. So anyways, this was a gift given to me, but she's on top of the Capitol building. And apparently she has a story that is a bit, it's missing parts to it. And so in speaking with Katya, who has studied Lady Freedom her whole entire life, she was letting me know that when they hired the sculptor for this, that they needed something to bring back to Europe to show them what they seen here in America. And they depicted an indigenous woman. And the indigenous women in America were dominion over the land. And I think that Lady Freedom, in essence, represented the freedom of America through an indigenous woman's dominion, who was led by and centered in the longevity of her family, her children. And so I just really wanted to thank you for your service to the coming generations who will inherit ancestors that they very well know tried everything they could to give them something different. And I'm going to let the translator go, and then I'll go a little bit more, and then I'll leave it at that.
Es bello sentir nuestra alma indígena y hacer referencia a ello. Y quería agradecer a todos ustedes, a la tribu de la campaña de la gente pobre, porque ustedes son reales. Ustedes son la clase de gente que tiene más calidad que cantidad. A veces uno está entre mucha gente sola, pero su gracia, su apertura a escuchar algo que es diferente hace una gran diferencia. Y también hemos hablado de mujeres prestigiosas que se reúnen aquí y Calia es una de ellas, es la mujer de la libertad. Se dice que ella está en el tope del edificio del Capitolio como una estatua, una representación. Katy me contó que un tiempo los europeos querían saber y tener una mujer que signifique lo que es la mujer aquí en las Américas. Y entonces ellos dibujaron a la Señora de la Libertad con su señoría sobre la tierra, que representaba a toda la América con su gracia. Y yo quiero ahora otra vez agradecerles a ustedes por su servicio a las nuevas generaciones y a todos los que se beneficiarán con ella.
Thank you, my dear. Yeah, so I just really wanted to acknowledge you and your families and your lived experience. And I too, and for your reflections, they're beautiful and authentic, and I like to receive those things. So, you know, again, I just wanted to continue to allow us to push the truth in history. And I'm glad that you see us as family. I think that's the biggest win, that we don't need their approval for. We don't need them to decide who's family and who's not. Like, we're family now. And we've come into space with it, and we're thoughtful about each other, and we respect each other. And I think that that's beautiful. It says everything about us. And so I'm very honored to be along your path. I'm over here working as diligently as you are because of how much I love the people. And we all come here because we have a gift, an offering to make. And so I'm grateful that you make yourself useful and you hold yourself tight to your responsibilities to the community. And trust me, our grandchildren will be so thankful to have been coming from a line of powerful, unlimited human beings. And so with that, from my house to your house, I send my best medicines around the virtual room here, and continue to find your courage and continue to let these young people fuel you, sustain you, because they have all the answers. They are our greatest teachers, and we just have to listen to them and make sure they get the truth. So thank you, Nyawagoa, from me and Mama Bear, and Tuknigo. I'm done.
Thank you.
Reconozco sus experiencias, les reconozco a ustedes, sus ideas son bellas y auténticas. sigamos hablando de la verdad y de la historia. Somos familia, nos respetamos y eso dice todo de nosotros. Estoy honrada de trabajar al lado de ustedes porque yo amo a la gente y esto, el hecho de que estemos disponibles para servir. Así es que vengo yo de un linaje de personas auténticas y este momento, con esa autenticidad, mando la medicina a todos para que les sostenga y para que sigamos todos unidos en la verdad.
So
Gracias,
beautiful.
thank you. And Mama Bear is the leader, and I was sharing that Mama Bear blessed my scarf. Now you're gonna see, I won't take it out. Thank you. Well,
You know, we
venga,
went
Willy.
a little over, but by golly, we will win this at the speed of liberation, and it